Amazing.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. ORT Jet empowers entrepreneurs in our community. We've achieved this vision by focusing on our successful four-pronged approach: the mentorship program, business networking, entrepreneurial training, and business talks in the webinar series. We are going to hear from a dear friend today, Mandy Penkin. Mandy is joining us from Sydney, Australia. For those of you who do not know Mandy, she is an experienced businesswoman who gets her hands dirty with a how can we do it commercial approach. She loves setting up new business channels, improving existing business lines, and adding value to business operations, specializing in financial services. Using lessons learned from her personal journey going through cancer treatment and swimming for Australia, she leads by example with positivity and strength and helps people see how we can live our best lives. Mandy speaks about using our strengths in goal setting, overcoming obstacles, and looking after our own health. Mandy, we are incredibly grateful to you for sharing this conversation with us. Please, can you all keep your microphones on mute and pop your questions in the chat box, and we will address them at the end. I hope you find this engagement invaluable. Over to you, Mandy.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thanks for that lovely introduction, very kind words. I think I might need to use that in my LinkedIn profile. I really appreciate the ability to talk to you guys today, and let's just keep this very informal and engaging. I'm very happy to answer questions and take comments along the way. I am going to share my screen. That coming up then? For you guys? Awesome.
Perfect.
Terrific. Okay, so moving right along. I did want to say that it's an amazing thing what you're doing to support people in a community, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity both to talk but also to the work that you're doing. And I was reflecting on a thread in the breast cancer ribbon. I don't know if you guys have seen that circular ribbon that's generally used to denote the breast cancer charities. And I recall a book I came across called An Apology for Wonder by Sam Keane. He's a professor of philosophy and theology, and he shares this key message that every man, and let's read this as woman as well in our modern world, covets the opportunity to take the measure of his life and be able to pronounce judgment, it is good. And Sam goes on to write about the meaning of life being the celebration of the wonder of creation around us. And he talks about experiencing gratitude for what we have rather than coveting what others have and constantly feeling like we're having FOMO. For those of you who don't know, FOMO is the fear of missing out. So I'm going to talk today about attitude, gratitude, and fortitude. So, spoiler alert, April 2016, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I wonder if it's possible to raise in the chat your hand just to let me know if you or a family member, someone close to you has had cancer. Not so many? Well, typically, yeah, okay. Family member, yeah. Yeah, so typically a fair few of us have been exposed to cancer, which is an insidious disease. It impacts not only the individual, but their family and their friends. And this picture that you can see of me, these two pictures here, is me feeling fit and healthy as I've ever felt a few weeks before being diagnosed. I had just completed my first and only half marathon. And unbeknown to me, I was already severely infected with breast cancer. And I learned a lot about myself during this journey, and I want to share some of this with you. I have 3 key messages and 4 key business guidelines that I think you can all apply to situations and dealing with people including in the business context. So breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in females. But the good news is that it can be detected. So my first message for you today is to get yourself checked. Do it early and do it often. I had noticed a slight nipple inversion on my right breast, and at the time I didn't know that that's a classic sign for breast cancer. So look out for any changes in your breast and go and see a doctor. And I know that it's much more prevalent in women, but there are men who have also been diagnosed with breast cancer. And ironically, my cousin's parents who live in Israel both got diagnosed with breast cancer. So both male and female of the couple. So look, how bad was it for me? I had an aggressive cancer. I'd had mammograms and ultrasounds every 2 years from when I was 40, and I discovered I had breast cancer at 48, and there was nothing on my previous test results. So if you take one thing out of today, this is the key message. The procedure to get checked is not invasive. It's relatively painless, although a mammogram is a bit of a cringe. But don't put off being checked out, because treatment is very successful, especially if caught early. And if you wait because you're scared of the procedure of the test, you might find out that the alternative is that you've caught it too late. So please, please, please get checked. So I have you can see on the slide that breast cancer has got the highest funding rate, certainly in Australia, and I think quite largely around the world, the highest breast cancer funding rates of all the cancers. And I have a theory as to why the funding rates are so high. And that is because men and women both love breasts. It has bipartisan support. So notwithstanding that it's got a lot of research, it does make you wonder why prostate cancer is only fourth. So look, everyone's personal journey is very different. We have different physical conditions, different mental states, and different challenges in our lives. But there's one thing that I believe helps consistently, no matter your starting position, your opportunities or your challenges, and that is your attitude. Your ability to grasp onto a useful belief and harness that energy. I believe your attitude determines your aperture, which is the size and the nature of the opening you use to view your world. The larger the opening, the broader your view. The broader the view, the more you see, the more you take in, and the more you see and know, the more opportunities tend to present themselves. And this is true in a business context as well, especially when dealing with clients. And I'll come back to that in a sec. So picture the scene. I get a call from our OBGYN and she goes, Mandy, it's not good. I'm going to try and make an appointment with a breast surgeon and I'll call you back. And a few minutes later, she calls back and she says, you're in luck. I've made you an appointment for 2 p.m. tomorrow. And you may be thinking, geez, it's likely I've got breast cancer, so how lucky is that? But attitude is about looking at that crappy situation with a different lens. And for me, the waiting is a very difficult thing to find out what's happening next, where are you on your journey? And so the fact that she'd managed to get me an appointment so quickly was really quite lucky. So the next morning, my husband and I went to pick up the scans from the lab so that we could take them to the appointment. And I was waiting for him in the coffee shop across the road because coffee, while he went to get scans, and he handed me the envelope and I ripped it open and I started holding up the images to the light to try and check what I could see. Not a doctor, I had no clue what I was looking at. So David reaches out across, lowers my hands down and says, Mandy, please put the pictures of your breasts away. And off we went to the appointment. So it didn't take long into the appointment for the diagnosis to be confirmed that my breast was trying to kill me. And although he was quite circumspect and wanted more tests, he did say that it was very likely that it was breast cancer. So I have to tell you that this is the worst part, but waiting to hear how bad it is, what's the prognosis, and my mind was all over the show. How bad is it? Has it spread? Check my trauma policy. Will it pay out? But then I took a deep breath, and I said, well, what's my goal? So I had it spread. So we go to the imaging lab, and they have to do a breast biopsy. So we're sitting there in the reception, and there's a TV playing in the reception room for people who are sitting waiting. And the story that it's playing is Love Story, which is a movie about a woman who dies of breast cancer. So David and I just looked at each other and packed up laughing. And that's attitude. Take the humor and the irony from the situation rather than getting yourself into a downward spiral. So I had 12 deposits in my breast and 3 lymph nodes infected. And the treatment plan was a mastectomy, which is, get rid of the breast and any of the cancer in it, and a full lymph clearance under my right arm to get rid of any of the nodes that might have been infected. But Baruch Hashem, unfortunately, the cancer did not appear to have spread anywhere else, which meant that there was a good prognosis. So my second message for you is to talk to your financial advisor or your estate planning lawyer today. It's 2 days before my mastectomy, the Mother's Day Classic was being run in Sydney. And it's an annual event that raises funds for breast cancer research. And I persuaded a bunch of family and friends and colleagues to run with me. And we had these Best of the Breast T-shirts and raised about $5,000 for breast cancer, which is an event that we participated in and ran in 2 days before my surgery. So still feeling fit and well and looking to do something positive. So just really inspiring for others, but also fulfilling for me and uplifting for me to be part of a community that were all looking to support me and come on down. So the next morning, though, I was in my husband's office signing legal paperwork. So notwithstanding that I'm married to a lawyer whose firm specializes in estate litigation, our affairs were not completely in order. I thought it was simple, leave everything to my husband and move on. But it actually isn't. We've got parents living with us. We've got kids that need to be taken care of. And if my hot and very eligible husband remarried, things can get very complicated. So I really think that you should make sure at any age that you've got your affairs in order, because we don't always have time to make sure that these things are taken care of. So I just wanted to also talk a quick second about insurance. So you may know that trauma insurance or critical illness cover was actually invented in South Africa by Marius Barnard, Chris Barnard's brother, who's also a medical doctor. And what he discovered was that when people suffer a trauma and they can't work, that it becomes very difficult for them to still meet both their medical and their living expenses. And so they came up with this insurance cover called trauma. It is generally quite an expensive type of cover because it covers those illnesses that are most likely to happen to you, particularly as you get into your 40s, 50s, and 60s. But even though it's something that's expensive, if you can afford it, I would try and take it out, because when a bad situation happens, it does make that journey that much easier to bear when you can cover private healthcare and other treatments that you need out of that funding. So the day of my surgery, the anaesthetist came into the room and he wanted to discuss my medical situation. And he asked me what I was allergic to. And I responded, cancer. So we all had a little giggle. But 2 days later, the anaesthetist came to visit me in the ward to have a little chat and a catch up. And the nurses told me that she never generally visits the day, 2 days after the surgery. But we bonded over a joke. And so my sort of client satisfaction message to you in my business sort of lesson 1 is make sure that you build rapport with people in any situation, because when you have a relationship with people and people feel that you know them and genuinely care, they will forgive some of the errors and they will want to do business with you. So make sure that you listen well, that you care about the people that you do business with and your clients, and that they feel that you are genuine. So what you can see from some of the pictures here is that we turned the ward into party central. We played cards, the kids kicked me out of my bed, we had plenty of visitors, and we made an otherwise dreary stay bearable. And you can see I was at the Prince of Wales Hospital, POW. You can see that picture on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen is me trying to get out of being a prisoner of war. So thirdly, I said to myself, what's my goal? And this is also an important business guideline. Goal setting is critical to success in your personal life and in your business ventures. And importantly, to successfully achieve your goals, you should, one, write them down. There's lots of studies that demonstrate when you write something down, that it makes it crystallized for you. It becomes visual, tangible, something that you're going to try and achieve. The second thing is tell people about them, especially your team, because it's critical to have a shared goal. And when you tell people about your goal, you somehow manifest it. The more people hear about it, the more people that want to support you in it. And the third point about goals is that you should ensure it's a SMART goal. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about your goals being specific and measurable, achievable, relevant or realistic, and time-based. But it's important to actually make sure that, particularly, that you've been quite broken down, granular in your goal, and that it's measurable, because goals that you can't measure whether or not there's been success, and particularly within a particular time frame, does make it a hell of a lot harder to achieve those goals. So my attitude around my journey was I didn't want to just get through this journey as soon as possible. I didn't want to wish my life away. I wanted to take opportunities from the situation, because even when bad stuff happens, some good can come out of it. And it's up to us to make the good and take the good out of the situation. So my goals were role model resilience. I wanted to show my kids how to face adversity and knock it out of the park. I wanted to rethink the way I prioritize my time and my interests and allow people to support me. When it comes to resilience, we all face challenges at different stages in our lives. They might be financial, depression, work demands, family demands, health, self-image, the list goes on, and often we're having competing of these demands that are putting pressure on ourselves. But your resilience comes from your strengths, and we all have them. The key is knowing what yours are and how to leverage them. There's a couple of websites you can go to where you can take a free online test, and it will give you some details about what your character strengths are and some tips on how to leverage them. So the one is called viacharacter.org, and another one is called headingforsuccess.com. I'll share those links in the chat later. And so I encourage you to take a test and determine your key strengths. So my natural sense of fun and sense of humor, that does create optimism. I like to get up to a bit of nonsense and to joke about most things. And you can see some of the images here in the picture. When I had to shave my head because I was starting to lose my hair from the chemo, I went to the hairdresser with a whole group of friends. We brought along the Fireballs, which was my drink of choice during chemo, because it takes that chemo taste away from the back of your mouth. And I had to shave a breast cancer ribbon into the back of my head. And then we all had a fireball to celebrate the achievement of shaving my head. And I will point out that I only let the hairdresser have the fireball after she'd finished with the sharp implements around my hair. So look, a willingness to be open. It's really important to share your journey with someone. You know, I have a natural strength that I'm able to talk about my situation. I'm able to be quite open about what I'm going through. And that does make a problem shared a problem halved. Not everyone is willing to be that open, but try and find a close family member, a close friend that you are prepared to share your struggles with if you're not naturally an open person, because it really does help people support you. I'm also quite analytical, so I'll research things, I'll understand what I'm doing and what's going to happen, and I'll try and make those things work for me. So a strong understanding of the facts and the events around me help me plan for that and put in place techniques that can take advantage of what's happening. And I developed a bit of a new strength, which is the ability to ask for and accept help. I was always a person who was sort of quite tough, outer shell. I can do anything so long as I have enough time and possibly don't sleep. I had, quite a positive image about my capabilities. But the truth is, when you're under pressure, you can't always do everything, and you can't always do everything well. So being able to surround yourself with a team that can support you and ask them for help in the areas that you need help, it's not a weakness. It actually is seen as a strength for people to identify that you are human, that you have vulnerabilities, and that they can be vulnerable around you and support you when you need help. So fun and optimism. I started a support group on WhatsApp, which I call the Best of the Breast. And the purpose of my WhatsApp group was to chronicle my journey, which was, always going to be something that I could potentially look back on over time and remember the good things. It was also to keep my mates up to date, what was going on without having to repeat myself. It gets quite tiring when people are asking you how you are and what's happening and what's the next step. So if I could just publish the details for everybody without having to repeat myself, it was a lot more easy to share. But it also enabled me to garner messages of advice and support. I wasn't the first person in my friend group to go through this journey, and other people were able to give me tips and tricks. So, being able to have that support group around me was really, really important for me. And it also helped me make every step of the journey an event. I could make things a fun, memorable milestone rather than like a drag and something that I had to go through. So you can see in all of these pictures here, I'm still being social. I'm still going out, sharing fireballs with anyone who was prepared to drink them. And on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can see in Australia, we have a race called the Melbourne Cup. It's a horse race. It happens on a Tuesday in November, second Tuesday of November. And they call it the race that stops the nation, because everybody takes a bit of a flutter on the Melbourne Cup and they stop to watch. It's actually a public holiday in Victoria where the race is held, but the rest of the country still comes to a grinding halt. And Tuesday was chemo day for me. So we baked cakes in the shape of breasts, and we took them into the chemo ward, and we all had champagne and breast cakes on Melbourne Cup Day, just to make everything into an event. And it also gives you the ability to sort of share your goals and your struggles and your successes. So you can see in this picture that that's actually my first chemo, and I'm clearly anxious. The nurses were unbelievably supportive, and they were friendly and warm and asked what I'd like to drink and offered food. I don't know how many people feel like eating and drinking through chemo, but it was nice of them to do it anyway. And they brought the bag of chemo goodies over. They call the Red Devil, which is an AC chemo because it's well red in color. But I noticed that the name on the bag was not my name. And it turned out that the wrong dose had been sent over. And I had to wait 4 hours for the correct batch to be made up. And you can understand when you're already anxious, having to wait an extra 4 hours, it kind of makes you a little bit frustrated. And I wanted to get started and not have to come back the next day. But the lab took ownership and immediately made up another batch and rushed it over. And so that's my sort of customer satisfaction guideline. number 3, which is tofu. Take ownership and follow up as fast as you can. When you acknowledge a mistake with a client and you immediately try and correct it, it actually makes that client feel special and feel better about what happened. When you try and make excuses and you try and put the blame back on the client or make out that it's not your fault, the clients don't want to hear the excuses, and it doesn't give them a good sense of satisfaction around what happened in the event. So many clients I have experienced have had a bad initial situation that's been fixed up immediately with an apology, and actually they then go and talk positively amongst their community about what happened, as opposed to them sharing a very negative experience. So it's very important for you to keep your clients happy. Make sure you tofu, take ownership and follow up. So when it comes to a sense of humor and making an event of every step in the journey, from every doctor visit to my first wig, we went wig shopping together with a bunch of friends. I tried on wigs and posted pictures on my WhatsApp group to everybody to give a vote as to which one was the best one. And that sort of brought everybody into the whole situation, made it fun. We did, of course, have fireballs with us at the wig shop. And it just sort of made the journey not a terrible thing, I'm going to go bald, but more, what am I going to look like in different wigs? I had nicknames for each of my doctors. So my breast surgeon was called Dr. Chop and Crop. My plastic surgeon who, did the reconstruction was called Dr. Pump and Plump. And my oncologist was Dr. Resist and Recover. So I gave everybody names and they knew their names. So shared it with them to have a bit of fun. My husband was my rock. Yours might be your mother, your sister, the nursing staff, your doctor. They have really, really good breast care nurses here. Share what's going on. Problem shared is a problem halved. And it feels like the load is non-existent if you share it a few times. Also, if people know what you're going through, you can play the cancer card. It's like the joker in the deck. Everybody says you've got to play the cards you're dealt. Well, play the cancer card. I'll tell you the story of, I went on a cruise, a weekend cruise after the end of my chemo with a bunch of girls. It's a cruise that leaves Sydney and goes nowhere. It sails just outside the harbour for a couple of nights and comes back. I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise, but they're quite strict about letting you bring alcohol on board. You're allowed to bring a bottle of wine per cabin and no spirits. So I told my oncologist that I'm going on this cruise, that they won't let me take my fireballs on board, and he wrote me a note. So I had a doctor's note saying that I was entitled to take my fireball on the cruise with me because it's medicinal. And I got a message in the cabin saying, Mrs. Penkin, we understand that you need to take fireball as your medicine. We just ask you to only take your medicine in the cabin. Of course, I didn't listen to that. Got a little bit of chemo brain during this journey. And I must say that I set a goal for myself. And the special goal that I thought I'd set was to swim the breaststroke for Australia. So there are a number of studies that talk about exercise and cancer. And that exercise during chemo specifically will help you to be physically strong enough to deal with the effects of chemo, and it boosts your body's natural immunity to help fight the cancer. So I had read and watched a number of documentaries, the analytical research side of me, and I determined that I would do a walk or a run or a swim before each chemo. It wasn't long before I couldn't really run, but I took up swimming, and I kept training 5 times a week, 2 to 3 swims or 2 to 3 walks. And I was very lucky that my kids who are also swimmers allowed me to train with them. would get up really early in the morning. The kids had to be in the water at about 5:45 in the morning, and I would get up and go and swim with them, notwithstanding that I was going through chemo. And there's a bunch of pictures of me. The one benefit of losing all your hair is it makes it very easy to get ready after you finish training. You don't have to spend time drying your hair. So within the goal to swim the breaststroke was at the Maccabi Games in July the next year. So I don't know if any of you know about the Maccabi Games, but it's actually the third biggest sporting event in the world. It's the third biggest international sporting event behind the Olympics and the Student Games. And we as Jews, we have our own sporting event because generally we're so poor at sport, it's the only way we can get a medal. But in order to represent your country at sport, notwithstanding that it was the Maccabi, we still needed to qualify, and the qualifying time was actually fairly a stretch, particularly for somebody who's going through, weakened from chemo and the impact on my blood hemoglobin, which makes it difficult to hold oxygen. And I had to go up to the Pan Pac Masters on the Gold Coast during chemo to qualify before the cutoff date for the qualifying times for Maccabi. And I was quite concerned because I was feeling quite drained. And I sort of had this balance between, you've got sort of low immunity, and I had to go and sort of be out there amongst people. And, for me, it was a bit of a risk. But I managed to qualify for the 50-meter breaststroke, the 50-meter freestyle, the 50-meter butterfly, and the 100-meter breaststroke to represent my country at the Maccabi the following year. And we decided that we would make it a family goal. My kids were already strong swimmers, and they also qualified to swim at the Maccabi. And my husband's not a swimmer, he's much more of a runner. So he put his hand up to run the half marathon and also managed to get a qualifying time and come along. So we were the first family from Australia to all go and compete in the same Maccabi. And that was very special. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So a very important business and goal-setting guideline is to keep your commitments. You'll often have to work hard. It won't always be easy. But not only is it well worthwhile for you, but your relationships are cemented on it. Your word is, in fact, your bond. And people quite quickly start to know whether they can trust what you say and that you're going to do what you say, or whether you are a person who doesn't follow through. And in business, it's really important that you keep your word and you follow through. Document incremental steps. Don't only document a lofty goal. So for me, my lofty goal was to swim the Maccabi, but the day-to-day goal was get up, get in the pool, do a certain amount of lengths, try and improve your time, go to a qualifying competition, compete. So every time you achieve one of those little milestones on your journey to your big goal, it's an adrenaline boost. It's very motivational, and it helps you keep going every step along the way. So the day that I rang the bell in the ward to signify the end of treatment, it was with mixed emotions. Of course, I was happy to finish abusing my body with all these chemicals, and I'd had 6 months of chemotherapy and 6 weeks of radiation. But it was also kind of sad to put behind me this phase where I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to work all day. I could walk the dog. I could sleep in. I could go and have coffee with friends. For me, always being a full-time working person as well as a parent, it was kind of like a freedom that I hadn't really had. But I'd made new friends. I'd reaffirmed existing relationships, and I had a ton of fun memories to boot. So after only 2 short months of training without treatment, It was actually off to the Maccabea. So you can see here we're competing, my hubby and I, my son, my daughter, all walking into the Teddy Stadium for the opening ceremony together. It was just such an amazing experience. For me, it wasn't about winning races and earning medals. It was about the experience. It was about sharing it with my family and the friends that I'd made training in the pool. It was about grabbing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something epic with my whole family that other people hadn't had the opportunity to do before. And the truth is that I wouldn't have had that opportunity without having had breast cancer. So while I don't wish breast cancer on anyone, and clearly I didn't want to get it myself, but I wouldn't change the experience for anything, because it granted me this terrific insight into my own strengths, and importantly, how people felt about me, and that there was a lot of care and concern and support for me. I don't know if I can play a video. Have we got time for me to play a video? Yes?
Sure.
I will see if I can share this. Can you guys see and hear this?
Competing at Maccabea is not just a childhood dream come true for me. It's a story of triumph and of wellness. My family has always shared a love for Israel and for our Jewish heritage. Everybody's life has its ups and downs. It's about grabbing those opportunities, finding the positives in every situation, and overcoming that. And this is my story. When I was about 15 and my brother was 17, we both qualified to go to Maccabea for swimming. Swimming wasn't such a big thing at Maccabea in those days, so we didn't land up going.
As a little girl, you could never get Amanda out the pool. She swam day and night and you could not get her out the water.
Fast forward to 2013, and I had another opportunity to go to Maccabea. I qualified and work commitments got in the way and I couldn't go. So in April 2016, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And my biggest fear at the time was, has it spread? And it had. And I remember discussing the treatment protocol with my specialist and asking him, how's this going to impact me? And he said to me, Mandy, you're going to have to write off a year. Write off a year? Is he mad? I don't even know how long I'm going to live. I'm going to make the best of this year. I'm going to reset goals. I'm going to grab every opportunity, and I'm going to try and achieve and experience the most I could out of this year.
My mum inspires me every day. She's always been hardworking, determined and motivated. And throughout her cancer journey, none of that's changed.
So after my mastectomy, it occurred to me that exercise could play an important role in aiding my recovery. So I got back into the water with my kids, who were training to qualify for Maccabea.
This Maccabea is so important to me because I'll be experiencing Israel for the first time with my family while competing in the Maccabea Games for Australia.
Going through chemotherapy for about 7 months, as you can imagine, there were some good days and some not so good days.
All right, so Mandy's quite competitive when it comes to sport, very strong spirit, and just incredible positivity about her.
So qualifying for me for Maccabea was a bit of a balance between training and getting fit enough to actually swim well, and also chemotherapy and getting weaker with each chemo treatment. During that process, I qualified for the 50 breast, the 50 free, the 50 fly, the 100 free, and the 100 breaststroke. And I remember at the end of the 100 breaststroke, I was so depleted that I struggled to drag myself out of the pool. But I had done it and I had qualified. So I've grabbed this opportunity for a second lease on life, and as a family, we'll be competing in Maccabea 2017. It is such a privilege to be representing Australia. It is also an honour to be part of the Jewish community of sport. We're pumped. Watch out, Maccabea 2017. Here we come. feel incredible. It's just been an awesome journey getting here. It was really tough to qualify because I was going through chemo at the time. And so just getting here and being able to get in the water and race and be cheered on by so many of my teammates, it's just awesome. And I just want to say thank you to all my breasties, the best of the breasties, and my family who've supported me to help me get here.
Stop the share. So just I guess in summary, just those messages again, just to reiterate, just see if I can share this again.
PETA presents The Octocurse.
Sorry.
It is said that if you eat octopus, you will be...
Wow. Look, I guess just in summary from me, the key messages are: if you're a woman and you've got a special woman in your life, make sure you get checked early and often. If you're a guy and you don't feel well, go to the doctor. You know, there shouldn't be this sort of bravery, I'm invincible kind of thing. Rather catch issues early. Make sure you've got a financial plan and make sure it has insurance cover in place. It's important, particularly if you're an entrepreneur and you're self-employed, because you need that cover if in the event you can't work. And look, stuff happens with everyone. You need a wide aperture. You need strengths and look out for what you can take out of every situation and learn your strengths and how to leverage them. Set goals and focus on the little steps, one step at a time to get you there. And from a business guideline point of view, build rapport with your clients. Be genuine, be caring. Set your SMART goals. Make sure that they're measurable. Make sure that you can break them down into those incremental bite-sized chunks. TOFU. Mistakes happen in anyone's business. Take ownership and follow up. Make sure that the client actually has a good experience out of something that maybe has gone wrong. And keep your commitments. Do what you say. Often this takes work. And put in that extra effort. Make sure that you do the work so that you can get that positive outcome from that work. And that's it from me. So let me know if you've got any questions, and we can take it from there.
Can I just say how inspirational this talk was?
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much, Mandy.
My pleasure. I
Sure.
appreciate I appreciate you enjoyed it. So thank you.
Incredible.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Yeah, please come, please talk or raise your hand if you want to ask a question. While people are thinking and popping them in the chat box, Mandy, there was just a question that I wanted to ask. It's more a personal question. As you shared right at the beginning, you mentioned, most of us know someone who's either they themselves have gone through a similar journey, or have a friend or family member who's recently been diagnosed or has been diagnosed. Like, what is the best way to say to them? What do you say to them that you don't say something in the wrong way? And because people do care, but obviously, but how do you put it across in the right way?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And, it's often in situations of loss or grief that it's very difficult to find the right thing to say. And I would think that this probably general rule applies even in those situations, and that is, let people know that you're willing to listen. A caring listener is what a person needs the most in that situation. If they want to talk about what they're going through, make eye contact, give them time to speak, and try not to interrupt. Ask them if they want to share what's going on for them. But from time to time through people's treatment, just keep asking them how they're feeling. You don't have to wait for the perfect time to ask. It might not come. Just make the effort to really listen and respond to their situation. You don't have to solve for them. You just need to listen. You can acknowledge that life can be hard. A person doesn't want to feel blamed or punished because they've got cancer. One of my friends, when I told them I had cancer, he said to me, "Oh, he's heard it's too much sugar, it's too much coffee or whatever. I've got a very sweet tooth and a coffee addiction." So it wasn't what I wanted to hear.
No.
Sorry?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm agreeing with you. It's the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah. So just kind of invite people to catch up, treat them the same as you always do, follow their lead, talk about other things too. Don't just talk about cancer, even talk about some of the things that you're going through. Obviously, not 5 seconds after you ask them how they're doing. But also know what not to say. So don't say things like everything's going to be all right because you don't know, or that it'll work out in the end, or things like how long do you think you have to live. Definitely don't say that. Don't say things like I can imagine how you feel, or just relax, don't stress. Those kind of things aren't the things to say. And then the things to do is just offer to help out. So offer to do practical things. We tend to say, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. But the truth is that people aren't typically going to pick up the phone and say, hey, remember you said you would do something for me. I've got something I want you to do. It's more like, yes, you can offer that and they'll know you're there, but just try and actually do those things. So bring around a meal, call them up and invite them for coffee, or say, can I bring a cup of coffee around, or offer to do lifts if they've got kids that need to be in lift schemes, offer to do the shopping. Just offer to do something practical and be specific about it. That's that, I guess, is the answer.
Thanks, Mandy. Another question that I have is, you speak about aperture quite extensively, and it's also the name of, you didn't really talk about what your actual business is, because you actually a very successful entrepreneur, and you've built an unbelievable career in Sydney, and how you got to the name of your business.
Yeah, excellent question. So my business is called Aperture Consulting, and quite literally because of that belief that I have that your aperture creates your attitude, and you need to have a very wide, broad aperture and view of the world, because I'm a firm believer that what you put out into the world comes back to you. So if you put out that positivity, you attract positivity, and you attract thoughts, and you're much more likely to achieve your goals. I'm a very much an optimist and a believer in the positive side of people, and I know that there are a lot of people that get caught in the trap of thinking that everybody's either out to get them, or they're certainly not out to help them. But I would like to rather come from the point of view that people actually want to help you, and that's why I put that positivity out there, and hopefully that there's some people that want to help. So that's the reason behind Aperture. It's a consulting business, and I consult on operational efficiency, business process improvement, helping people with their back office systems integration, etc. And I generally help sort of medium-sized businesses. And I worked in big corporate in South Africa. I worked for Investec Bank for nearly 10 years. I worked for Commonwealth Bank of Australia in Australia for about 8 years, and various other big corporates. And then I left to go on my own. I wanted to be a bit of my own boss, and I wanted to, take those lessons that I learned in those environments and try and apply it to my own business. But I also was introduced during those times working with corporates to Jim Collins. I don't know if you've heard of him, and Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek writes about finding your why. Why are you doing what you do? And he's got this famous saying that says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So it's about coming up with your why and letting people know why you do what you do, because then they're much more likely to pick you over someone else who's pitching the what they do, not so much why they do it and why they're passionate about what they do. And Jim Collins talks about finding the intersection in the Venn diagram between something that you're good at. So, you're very capable, more than capable at it, that you like doing it, you love it, and you can monetize it. So you're trying to find that sort of center of the Venn diagram between what you're good at doing, what you like doing, and how you can make money from it. And just before I started my business, I listened to that podcast from Jim Collins and thought about what is it that I'm really good at. And I'm really good at operational business processes and helping streamline businesses and integrate systems and that kind of thing. I love it. I know it often makes people's eyes glaze over, but it really fires me up. And why I help medium-sized businesses is the big end of town is largely taken care of by the big end of town. And quite frankly, the small end of town generally can't afford me. So I target kind of that middle of the range size of business, and typically in financial services, because that's where I've worked my whole life. So I know that very well. So try and find that. Try and find your why. Try and find the intersection in your Venn diagram. And by the way, it's sort of expanded nowadays to be a fourth circle, which is around that sort of socially conscious giving back piece. And to that end, I love doing these kind of talks where I can give back to other young and up and coming entrepreneurs. But also I'm on the board of Maccabi because, Maccabi gave a lot to me, growing up through my life, but also, and obviously for Maccabea, but also I'm a very strong believer in three very important aspects of health and wellness. And the first one is nutrition. We can't always eat everything well. I do have the odd fireball, as you might have heard, like my chocolate and my coffee, but generally I try and eat relatively healthily. The second part is exercise. There's tons of studies that talk about exercise and the endorphins it produces, but also getting your heart rate up. And I'm not a marathon runner. I'm not a high-end performance athlete, but I do walk every day. I take the dog out for a walk. I go for a swim, that kind of thing. And the third aspect is actually social. Being with people, sharing with friends, having a community around you is a very important aspect of a healthy and well life. And that's kind of like the philosophy of Maccabi, and the aspect of Maccabi that I look after is called Maccabi Life. And it's about non-organized sport, non-competitive sport, just getting people together outdoors to be healthy and well and share together. And so, Shelley, let me know if you want to join any of our groups in our teams.
To join you. And I wanted to ask you a question, but I'm going to save this when you're coffee. And the thing was, what was the main thing that you changed? You've had this positive attitude before your diagnosis, but you kept inspiring others and you kept going, and that must have directly impacted your business of how you saw things. So I was just curious how that must have had a huge impact of how you went forward when you went back to work. I would imagine, it's
a tremendous question, actually. And in thinking about it, I would say that my story and my journey and the positivity and I guess the resilience that I demonstrated going through that journey was something that people felt in business they could rely on. They knew that I wasn't going to be the person who ducked as soon as things got tough. And I talk to people, even though my business is called Aperture Consulting, that I'm more of a coach than a consultant. And the reason why is coaches are there on game day. They're standing at the side of the field, they're cheering you on, they're encouraging you. And I'm there on game day for my business. And I want them to feel that passion and feel that I am going to fight for them. And I think that's probably the key message that they probably took out of my journey, that, I'm a fighter, and I'm not going to head for the hills when any business hits challenging times or projects don't always go according to plan. And it's always that vision of, what's the best I can get out of here, from here? Not looking back all the time. Yes, you can look back to improve how you would do things the next time. But when you're in the middle of a project or a program of work, it's never about looking back, because you can't change what happened. You can only say, what's the best I can get moving forward?
Thank you, 100%.
Okay. Mandy, thank you so much for sharing your incredible and inspiring story this morning or afternoon for you within the safe space. It's really been most insightful and invaluable. Sharing your powerful experiences, the positivity, and the skills that will help us to set our right mindset and to set our correct goals and actions to attract our desired outcomes. We hope that you all found this webinar equally inspiring, beneficial, and helpful. Thank you for joining us today. Do look out for our invites in your inbox and our social platforms for the future ORT Jet events and training workshops. And thank you everyone so much, and have a wonderful day.
If anyone wants to connect with me, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and Lisa, Nicole, feel free to share my email address with the group.
Thank you so much, Mandy. You're an absolute inspiration. Thank you. God bless. And
Thanks so much, Mandy.
Soon. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, 7 p.m. Cheers.